Thank you for checking out this video. This is the panel I did for VGMCON 2024 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The video recording turned out pretty good, though I did one of those auto-splitting voice and music things to try to adjust the volume because you couldn't really hear me in some of the parts. So it sounds a little shaky, but I think overall it came together pretty well. And I did make one mistake in the name of a game, and I tried to cover it up as best as I could in post. The playlist and the videos I mentioned in the panel are all in the description. Thank you to everyone that came out in person, and I hope you enjoy a J-Fusion and VGM listening party.
The whole kind of goal of it is I'm just going to play some J-Fusion, which is just a short way of saying Japanese jazz fusion. We're going to play some tracks from that, and then I'm going to play tracks from video games that I think were kind of influenced from it. Some of it's a little more like kind of more the vibe. Some of it is pretty obviously influenced from one other. But I want to say, yeah, come on in. But first I want to talk about what this panel is not. And what this panel is not is, I'm not going to talk about what jazz is. I'm not going to try, jazz fusion very roughly is just the fusion between jazz and other genres. Usually rock is the big one. Hey, there we go. I'm not going to talk about that Koji Kondo is a hack or that the Mario theme was completely lifted from T-Square or anything like that.
We'd all get up and
and definitely not all game music is jazz fusion. It's just really heavily influenced in a lot of ways you'll see. But what I'm going to show is I'm going to show you some amazing jazz fusion music, some game music, and a really interesting overlap between the two, where the game composers themselves covered the tracks that they wrote for games. And we'll see that near the end. But to start with, we're going to talk about three jazz fusion bands, specifically Casiopea, T-Square, and then finish up with Dimension. First off, I'm going to start with Casiopea. So this is Dazzling by Casiopea from the album Photographs, 1983. So yeah, Casiopea started in I think '78, and they've had lots of different lineup changes throughout the years. But their main lineup in the '80s was Issei Noro on the guitar, Tetsuo Sakurai on the bass, Kira Jimbo, he's amazing. He's in a billion things on the drums, and Minoru Mukaya on keys. That's the lineup is for the ones we're talking about today. And some of their names are going to come up all over the place. So. But the thing that this one reminds me of is, there's a couple of different fighting game things, but the big one for me is going to be Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Specifically, this track is Clock Tower. Most of the music in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is more jazz than jazz fusion, but this one has like that rock drums kind of going on.
Question.
Yeah.
So the two members from Casiopea, it's not really Casiopea that's playing this, it's just two of the members from them, or are they?
these tracks aren't really
The tracks aren't one-to-one like people playing it from it. It's just, this is just kind of the style being influenced on others.
Sure.
There are a few cases where they are playing it on those tracks. But for the most part, that's just the composers up there. I should have read all these before. Mitsushiko Takano. Next Casiopea track I'm going to do. This is Love You Day by Day, also from Photographs. There might be a Twin Beat track later, Carl. You just have to wait and see. What that intro specifically, the intro reminds me of is Space Harrier.
Yeah.
Hiroshi Kawaguchi, and Hiroshi Kawaguchi is going to be on this playlist a couple of times. lot of the tracks I was finding were all Sega tracks from the 80s. There's a lot of jazz fusion stuff in it and all of that, which we're gonna see in just a second. I can just listen through all the space characters theme. I love it.
Get ready.
Yeah. In the interest of time, I gotta move on. I know.
People blank. Amazing.
But next up, we got this is as you know, all of this is pretty niche, but probably one of the more famous tracks from Casiopea is Asiake. This is originally from the album Superflight, but this is the version from Mint Jams, which is a live album. It's a goated album. It's an incredible album.
So it's the stream.
This is kind of going on the theme for this year. It's so sunshiny and happy. It's like, you know, imagine driving by like a cool coastal way with, you know, your best girl next to you or whatever, hair blowing in the wind or whatever. Which is appropriate because what this reminds me of is a little game called Outrun. Again, Hiroshi Kawaguchi, 80 Sega.
Those offbeats, just kind of,
Yeah. Love that one. Love that. So good. Yeah, that's Passing Breeze. So it's my favorite track. Magic Sound Shower was also great, but I only fit so many tracks on this list. I just had to cut so much stuff. Moving on. Next one I'm gonna get going is a little more chill, a little more quiet. If I can fade in. Here it is. This is Span of a Dream from the album Crosspoint, 81. So fun fact about this track, the first time that I went through this playlist and kind of went through the panel with my wife, we were on like the middle of a long road trip or whatever, and I got to this track and she fell asleep.
Soothing.
It's soothing. I think that's a compliment. I think it's a compliment. But related to sleepy times, what this reminds me of is some of the kind of more chill songs from Animal Crossing. This is 11 p.m. from City Folk, which it's the same as the stuff from Wild World, but with like a little higher quality. And that's all the composers credited. This track's probably Kazumi Tataka because he did all the hourly themes for Wild World. pick us back up and get back in the sunny side feeling, it's sunny side feeling. And what I specifically want you to listen to is that really bright piano sound. And the sunshiny feeling with the bright, happy piano sound makes me think of...
Sasaka again?
Again, Kazumi Tsutaka. Title screen from sports.
Is it possible to turn extremely loud?
As loud as I guess.
Make it resonate.
And this little synth sound right here is going to be our kind of connecting to our next band here. There's a little organ in there too. Love it. So that connects us to our next band, which is T-Square. So T-Square, I think, is probably most people, if you're really into the video game music world.
I don't want to interrupt, but I heard that song before.
you might have heard a lot of these songs before. You can come on, sit down. You want to check it out?
One moment, I'm in the middle of the. I know, but I'm in the middle of the opening ceremony.
No, you're good, man. You're good. So, yeah. Next up is T-Square. We're gonna move back to the late '70s with this first track. This is a Feel Deep Inside from Lucky Summer Lady. 78. The part I want to talk about specifically is a little bit in this line right here. Yeah. So, well, you probably guess what it makes me think of is the. A little bit.
Walk down.
The walk down, yeah. Obviously, T-Square didn't invent the walking down with it, but yeah, it might have been. And then that, of course, is just the same kind of idea, just the more chill, kind of whatever stuff. So next up is probably one of my favorite T-Square songs. That's Moments of Love. It's from the album Resort from 1985. This is we kind of mentioned some of the people, some of the personnel from T-Square. T-Square also had different lineups over the years. This one, for these albums I talk about today, are Masahiro Ando on the guitar, and who's also the lead songwriter. Takeshi Ito on the saxophone, or on the, well, actually, I thought it was the Iwi, and later on he plays the Iwi, which is this guy, the electric instrument, is what Iwi stands for. You'll probably see some people this weekend playing on this. But actually what he's playing on in this track is a earlier analog synthesizer and control wind instrument called a Lyricon, which I had never heard of. It's like a mechanical flute, or there's other ones that have style, it's like a saxophone. But it has a reed and everything, which is wild, and I don't 100% understand how it works, but I couldn't find a picture of Ito playing it, but this is a picture of Masato Honda playing it, and he was the lead songwriter and EV player in the 90s. He'll come up a couple of times later too. But what this makes me think of, specifically with that sound, that like EV kind of synthesized sound with wind controller, is Wave Race.
Yeah.
Johnny's points. And then also the track that really has that EV sound is and again, Kazumi Sataka.
Yeah.
So this next one's a huge one. Definitely in Japan, this is T-Square's most famous song by a long shot, is Truth, from the album Truth, in 1987. So, this track, a big connection with jazz fusion in Japan is racing, Formula One racing especially, and this track, Truth, was the theme song for Fuji TV's broadcast of Formula One racing from 1987 to like 2005 or something. And some maniac hero on YouTube posted every single one of the Fuji TV intros from 85 to 2000, whatever, or 87 to 2005. And yeah, it's cool just seeing like lots of cool cars racing around with this song in the background. And that kind of creates, it was there a little bit before, but that really solidified the connection between jazz fusion and racing. So, a lot of racing games, especially ones that were made by Sega in the 90s, have this kind of jazz fusion sound. The one not made by Sega that has connection is Gran Turismo, because the guitarist from T-Square, Masahiro Ando, that's what I wrote. He actually composed on Gran Turismo, as well as a few other games. But so the big main theme from it is Moon Over the Castle, which has a 30-second spring intro. There's a version of Moon Over the Castle in a bunch of different Gran Turismo games. The most recent one is has a minute and a half long organ intro before this. But Masahiro Ando also did music for the Arc the Lad series, which I had never heard of until I was doing research for this. But it's like a tactical RPG series. It has some cool music. And again, had to cut for time. So moving on. Here's one of the biggest actual comparisons that you'll hear a lot. That is Travelers by T-Square from the album Adventures, 1984. Which some of y'all, just from hearing that, probably know what I'm about to say.
That was pretty famous.
It's a pretty famous one.
Be a family man.
jumping ahead a little bit to the part that's a little more on the nose. This whole album, Adventures, like probably my favorite T-Square album. It's so good. So, sure, some of y'all guessed it. It's Scout. And again, not saying Shimura is a hack. There's so much that makes this song unique compared to Travelers. The fade is similar, and especially the B section. So moving on, this one, Marty doesn't like this one, so sorry, Marty. But I have to mention it. It's literally.
I like both songs though.
The song's good, yeah. It's literally in the Wikipedia page for the Adventures album, so I have to mention it. This one is kind of infamous because I'll
What?
And yeah, I think that's from Measurement. No, I'm not gonna place too much. You guys can see. And the thing is, Koji Kondo was incredibly influenced by T-Square. He's said in interviews and stuff, and the man's an incredible songwriter. I'm not saying that he ripped it off. There's so much more to the Mario theme than just the but I have to. Sorry. Moving on. This is Chaser. This is a little later. This is going to be Albert Precious from 1991. So what this one makes me think of is stuff from Motoi Sakuraba, who did like Tales of series, did Golden Sun, and I also love. He also did Mario Tennis. Mario Tennis has like RPG battle music that is really match point. I also have to throw in Golden Sun.
Damn.
I didn't realize those two songs were by the same person.
Yep, same guy. Dark Sakuraba.
Yeah, she should have Dark Pit too.
I did not have Dark Pit. That would have been a good one too, but yeah.
Choice Sakuraba.
Yeah. So this one doesn't flow quite as well to the next group, but it's similar era though. So our next group I'm going to take a look at is Dimension, which I don't have as much history with Dimension because I only really dug into them because of this panel, but they become one of my favorites. They started in '92 with a mini album called Mods. This is the opening track, Out of Wind. The thing I love about Dimension is that Dimension very specifically has an influence on Mario Party. So we'll get to it, but Hint Nagata started with Mario 64, all through that. There's a lot of overlap between Dimension and Music there, both in musically and personnel-wise. But I wanted to play another Dimension track real quick. Very specifically, that part sounds like.
Yeah.
Sounds like your race starting in Mario Kart 64. Moving on to our next. This is Ocean Express from First Dimension, their first full album. And Dimension, all of their albums are called First Dimension, Second Dimension, Third Dimension, going forward. Until around, I think around 14 or 15, they just are called numbers. So they released an album in 2021 that's called 32. So they've released one almost every year for over 30 years. So that right there, the drum or the guitar there is Takashi Masazaki, and saxophone is Kazuki Katsuta. And we're gonna be hearing from them a good bit more throughout the rest of this panel. Well, this reminds me with that guitar sound and that little bit of organ in there is the Twin Turnpike from 64 as well. It's Nagata. Get that one slap bass going too. Spin around. And now we're going to talk about the last couple ones from Dimension. That's Kazuki Katsuta. Wild. But if you want more wild saxophone, a great soundtrack for you is Mario Kart 8. And he doesn't play it on this first track, but we'll get to it. Kazuki Katsuta did play on Mario Kart 8 soundtrack in a couple of places. But the guitar is Takashi Masazaki. The guitar is in there too. Saxophone for most of the Mario Kart 8 soundtrack is Takuro Yamamoto, who the main thing that they also did was they played saxophone with seatbelts, so they're also on the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack. There's a couple sax players on the seatbelt, but they're one free stuff. So, real quick, I gotta put this. I gotta listen to that. That's kind of song stupid. Played the song a million times with the analyst. But Kazuki Katsuta didn't play the sax on that one, but he did play the famous Mario Kart play. So you'll hear that in his solos and Dimension songs. He does that same kind of famous lick throughout it. But he did play saxophone on this. Oh, not that one. This one. Yeah, this is this big blue version from Mario Kart 8. And it's kind of a reuniting of our saxophone and guitar. So good. But that guitar and saxophone playing like the same melody together, that's all of it. next up, we're gonna have a little quiz. So, I'm gonna play some songs, and if you think it is from one of our J Fusion bands, I'm gonna pull up a 1, and if you think it's from a game soundtrack, I'm gonna pull up a 2. So, y'all got it? All right. So here's the first one. What thing? Fusion, the game, what thing? So this one's a little tricksy. It is from a game. It's from the game Driving Motion Type S, which is a racing game that has a lot of J Fusion on sound and a lot of J Fusion people. Specifically, the guitarist is also Casiopea from. So, next one. What thing? So, being a jerk here, it's also from Driving Motion Type S.
You don't
Like
like the original.
Get some enthusiasm.
Mix up.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole soundtrack's amazing. I'm a big recommend. Next one's not as tricksy, I promise. The ones have it. This is beat number 5, also from. Again, as we've seen before, TV Perk isn't in Mario Kart 8. I tried listening through all of the Mario Kart 8 music in preparation for this. Just like 6 hours of music. Every single new track that they add adds more music to it, and they've been doing that for a decade. It's wild. Alright, we got one more. I love Will knew his answer, and then he saw Carlos and was like, wait. This is also a fusion track. This is Fight Man, Casiopea. And there was a concert that is called Casiopea versus E Square, or is it the reverse? Yeah. Whichever one it is. But it's an amazing concert. But they did a version of this where it's like the full band of E Square and the full band of Casiopea playing the song and like passing it back and forth. It's so good. It's really cool. Okay, so now I want to talk about some stuff from video game music, so kind of over the years, through different systems that I think were influenced by J-Fusion specifically. So the first one, going to the 8-bit era, there's an arcade game first, but this is the NES version of it. Double Dragon. And you know, you got the 3 notes that you can play on the NES, and they're trying to get that same kind of energy that you hear in the T-Square company. Another one of my favorite things. Moving into the 16-bit era, this is kind of a deeper cut, but a cool one too. This is the main menu from
Suzuka.
8 Hours, which
Suzuka.
8 Hours is another big race in Japan. Japan it's on motorcycles, and it's an 8-hour-long race, which doesn't sound super interesting to watch, but whatever. But it's also associated with jazz fusion a lot, so.
You have to play the game for 8 hours.
I played it for 0 hours. So.
It's like Desert Bug.
If you stop, you've done so.
Desert Bus would be more fun for some guys. So moving up, whenever we're getting into Red Book audio, like you actually hear like real instruments or real recordings of fake instruments, we get. What? This is One Night in Kobe City from Snatcher. Snatcher was the first, or one of the first games that Jay and Kojima worked on. It's like a visual novel thing. It's a cool one. Love saxophone. This next one, this is 100% a pick from Carlos. I never would have found this in a million years. It's called Chaos from Zero Divide 2.
The Zero Divide game so mid, but like such great like all of them. It's just like,
I love that.
let's just freaking trend. Okay.
You love it.
Yeah.
So the last section for this, I want to talk about kind of an interesting phenomenon that happened in the 80s and the 90s. So a lot of these big developers in Japan would also have kind of in-house bands, like made up of people that worked for the games. Either they worked on music specifically or just were around and play instruments. And a lot of them would do albums and performances playing like full band versions of the songs. Which is wild to watch because there's one where it's literally like you'll see them playing music from Space Harrier or whatever, and they'll have visuals behind them while they're playing at a concert, and it looks like something from VGMCON or MagFest, but it's in 1990. But the first one's a little different. The first one is from first off, the original track. It's Spark Angel Stage from Spider-Man X, famous. This came out in 1993, and the next year there was an album released called Rockman X, which Rockman X is what it was called in Japan, but it's a arranged album by Capcom sound team Alpha Lila, which was, and it's not just people from the band, it's also made up of other jazz fusion artists, which includes, drums on here is Akira Jimbo. And Masato Honda, who's the big T-Square EV player, is playing EV here. And this one's kind of more of like a rearranging of it, kind of like a reinterpretation of the song, or just straight like translation. This whole album's amazing too. It's good. Very recommended to me. So moving on, most of the ones you'll hear from these kind of in-house bands are more in this vein. So we got the original. This is Stage 1 from Zexex. I believe Zexex is how you say it. That's Big Peter from Konami. This is the arranged version. This is from the Konami Kukeha Club, which Kukeha means like square wave, Konami Square Wave Club. Moving on, we got 2 more sets of tracks. So next up, we've got going over to Sega. We got Sprinter from Super Hang On. Then here's the version from the SST band, which is SMT Sega Sound Team. This album was really fun. Someone written the whole VHS of the whole concert. It's a fun watch. So the last one I'm going to play today is some Twinbee. Sky Swimming from Minneapolis. And then the Konami Kukeha Club did a version of it that sounds very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll thank you guys so much for coming out to see this. I love sharing all this kind of stuff. If you want to have all the tracks, that's a QR code to the playlist I made. That's all the tracks from today's panel. You can follow me at Major_3rd. Huge thanks and a huge shout out to my buddy Carlos for giving me a lot of recommendations. A big reverse thanks to the game Velastro that made this panel take about a month longer to create. And yeah, you can follow me in Blue Sky, Twitter, and all that. I had so much fun putting this together, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Bye.